Hello there, welcome to HFY Quantum Pro. Here, helping one another makes the universe smarter. So, what we are waiting for? Let's begin our story.
The navigation system had been acting strange for the past hour, but Danny Reeves trusted technology more than his gut. That was his first mistake. His delivery pod slipped through the darkness between stars, carrying 12 garlic-free pizzas to coordinates that made no sense. The destination sat deep within Noctari space, a region where humans were forbidden to enter. The Vampire Empire did not welcome visitors, especially not the warm-blooded kind. Danny checked the order again. Payment had cleared 3 hours ago. The address was real. The customer name was listed simply as S. Val Noctis, with a note requesting extra cheese and no garlic on any pizza. Strange order, but he had delivered to stranger places. His pod emerged from the jump point, and Danny's breath caught in his throat. The Palace of Eternal Night floated in the void like a wound in space itself. Black stone towers reached toward nothing. Red lights pulsed behind thousands of windows. The whole structure looked like something that had crawled out of a nightmare and decided to build a home. Docking procedures activated automatically. His pod was pulled inside without his permission. Danny gripped the controls, but nothing responded. He was cargo now, being delivered just like his pizzas. The hangar was massive and cold. Other ships sat in neat rows, none of them human-made. Several showed blast marks and broken windows. Danny noticed dark stains on the floor near some of them. He chose not to think about what those stains might be. He grabbed the thermal bags and stepped out. His boots echoed on the black stone floor. Within seconds, pale figures emerged from the shadows. Servants, he realized, tall and thin with skin like moonlight and eyes that reflected red in the dim light. They moved without sound. "Delivery for Val Noctis," Danny said, keeping his voice steady. Years of combat training kept his heart rate calm. He had seen worse things than pale people with sharp teeth. At least, he told himself that. The servants exchanged glances. One of them smiled, showing fangs that could punch through steel. "The human does not run," she whispered to her companion. How curious. They led him through corridors that seemed to shift and change. Danny memorized the path anyway, counting steps and turns. Old habits died hard. He had been a combat medic before becoming a delivery driver. The job change was supposed to be less stressful. The throne room doors opened, and Danny stopped walking. She was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. The princess sat on a throne of black crystal, wearing a dress that seemed made of liquid darkness. Her hair fell like silver water past her shoulders. Her eyes were the red of dying stars, and they fixed on Danny with an intensity that made him feel like prey. "You brought my pizza," she said. Her voice was music made of broken glass. How wonderful. Danny set the thermal bags on a nearby table. 12 garlic-free, extra cheese. Still hot. "That will be 460 credits, but payment already cleared, so you are all set." The princess tilted her head. "You are not afraid." "I am terrified," Danny admitted, "but fear does not deliver pizza on time. My rating would suffer." She laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, and several servants flinched. Danny guessed they did not hear her laugh often. "I am Seraphine Val Noctis," she said, rising from her throne. "Fourth daughter of Emperor Valdris. I ordered these pizzas because I wanted to meet a human. You see, I have studied your kind for centuries. You fascinate me." Danny felt the servants closing in behind him. He saw others moving to block the doors. His escape routes were disappearing one by one. "That is flattering," he said, "but I have other deliveries scheduled." "No, you do not." Seraphine walked toward him slowly. "I arranged for your navigation system to bring you here. I have been watching you for months." Danny Reeves, former combat medic, survived the massacre at Colony 7, lost your entire squad, and walked away alive. "You are exactly what I need." The palace rumbled. Alarms began to flash. Seraphine's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "Lockdown initiated," a voice announced. "All exits sealed." Danny looked at the princess. "Let me guess. That was not your doing." Seraphine shook her head. "My betrothed has arrived early. Lord Crescent was not supposed to be here for another week." She grabbed Danny's arm with surprising strength. Listen carefully, human. I brought you here because I need a champion. Someone who does not break under pressure. Someone who can help me escape a marriage to a monster. And if I refuse, then Crescent will drain you dry and mount your bones on his wall. He hates humans more than anything in the universe. She met his eyes. But if you help me, I will grant you something no human has ever received. Safe passage through Noctari space. Freedom for every human prisoner in this palace. And perhaps, if we both survive, something more. Danny thought about his options. They were not good. But then again, they never were. Tell me about these trials, he said. Seraphine smiled. And for just a moment, she looked almost human. I knew I chose the right delivery driver. I only came to drop OFF a pizza. The vampire princess had other plans for ME Part 2. The proposition, they put Danny in a room that cost more than his entire apartment block back on Earth Station 9. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings painted with scenes of ancient hunts. The bed was large enough for 6 people. The windows showed nothing but stars and darkness. He was a prisoner in a cage made of luxury. Danny found the hidden communication device in his boot heel and activated it. Static filled his ear for 3 long seconds before a familiar voice broke through. Danny? Where the hell are you? Your tracker went dark 6 hours ago. Mira Okonkwo, his dispatcher, sounded equal parts worried and furious. She had been intelligence once, before the agency let her go for asking too many questions. Now, she coordinated pizza deliveries and pretended not to miss the excitement. I am in the Palace of Eternal Night, Danny whispered. Noctari space. Deep inside, silence. Then Mira said something that would have made a soldier blush. There is no extraction possible, she continued after calming down. You are behind enemy lines in the worst possible way. The closest human ship is 40 light years away. I figured. Danny moved to the window. Outside, he could see warships arriving. Dozens of them, all bearing the same crimson symbol. There's a princess here. She wants me to be her champion in some kind of trial. The right immortal challenge, Mira said immediately. Ancient Noctari custom. A princess facing unwanted marriage can select a champion to fight for her freedom. 3 trials. No one has ever survived all 3. How many have tried? 17 in the last century. Different alien species. Average survival time was 4 minutes. Danny closed his eyes. Great. The door opened and Seraphine entered. She had changed into simpler clothes, dark pants, and a flowing shirt. She looked almost normal, except for the fangs and the eyes that glowed softly in the dim light. I hope your room is comfortable, she said. It is lovely. I especially enjoy being a prisoner. Seraphine sat on the edge of the bed. You're not a prisoner. You are a guest who cannot leave. That is the definition of a prisoner. She smiled at that. Something about Danny's responses seemed to amuse her constantly. Let me explain what I'm offering. Lord Crescent is a warlord who has slaughtered millions across 12 systems. He feeds on fear as much as life force. Our marriage would unite his military power with my father's empire. Together, they would begin a campaign against human space. Danny turned to face her. And you do not want this? I have studied humans for 800 years. Your species is not prey. You are something else entirely. Something the Noctari need to understand rather than destroy. She stood and walked toward him. Crescent sees you as cattle. I see you as potential allies. So I fight your battles, win your freedom, and in exchange humans get protection. More than protection. Safe passage through Noctari space for all human vessels. Release of every human prisoner in our territory. Trade agreements that would benefit both species. Seraphine stopped directly in front of him. And you, Danny Reeves, would become the first human ambassador to the Noctari court. Danny laughed. It was not a happy sound. I'm a pizza delivery driver. You were a combat medic who survived a massacre that killed 200 soldiers. You walked through fire carrying 3 wounded men on your back. You have been shot, stabbed, and burned, and you are still standing. Her voice dropped lower. I did not choose you randomly. I chose you because you do not know how to break. A boom shook the palace. Through the window, Danny watched a massive ship dock with the station. It was covered in spikes and weapons, built for intimidation as much as war. Crescent has arrived, Seraphine said quietly. He will demand to see me within the hour. When he learns I have invoked the right of mortal challenge with a human champion, he will be furious. What happens then? The trials begin tomorrow. She moved toward the door. The first trial is survival in hard vacuum. No equipment. 10 minutes. Danny felt his stomach drop. Humans cannot survive that. Seraphine paused at the door. The Noctari believe no species can survive it except themselves. That is why they chose it as the first trial. She looked back at him. But you humans have surprised us before. Perhaps you will surprise us again. She left. Danny stood alone in his beautiful prison, thinking about vacuum and death and a princess who had bet everything on a man who delivered pizza for a living. He had 20 hours to figure out how to survive the unsurvivable. He got to work. The arena was a sphere of transparent crystal floating in space. Thousands of Noctari watched from viewing platforms, their pale faces pressed against windows, eager to see a human die. Danny stood in the center of the sphere, wearing nothing but simple clothes. No suit, no helmet, no oxygen. The rules were clear. Survive 10 minutes in hard vacuum. Nothing else mattered. Lord Crescent sat in the royal box beside Emperor Valdris. The warlord was massive, even by Noctari standards. His body was covered in battle scars, and his eyes burned with hatred whenever they landed on Danny. This is your champion? Crescent's voice boomed through the arena speakers. A delivery man? A human who brings food to doorsteps. Seraphine stood nearby, her expression calm. He meets the requirements. Species does not matter under ancient law. He will die in seconds. Crescent smiled, showing rows of teeth like broken glass. Humans are fragile creatures. They pop like fruit in vacuum. Emperor Valdris raised his hand. The arena fell silent. Begin the trial. The floor beneath Danny disappeared. He fell into space. The cold hit first. It was beyond anything Danny had ever felt, a chill that reached into his bones and squeezed. His skin began to freeze immediately. Frost formed on his eyelashes. Then the pressure vanished. Danny had trained for this. Not for 10 minutes. Nobody trained for 10 minutes, but for emergency situations. Combat medics learned to survive short vacuum exposure because ships sometimes lost pressure during battle. 30 seconds was survivable. 1 minute was possible. 10 minutes was death. He did not exhale. That was important. Exhaling in vacuum meant your lungs would collapse. Instead, Danny kept his mouth open and let the air escape slowly while his body adjusted. The watchers leaned forward. They expected screaming. They expected thrashing. They expected a human to die the way every other species had died in this trial. Danny floated calmly. His blood began to boil at the 2-minute mark. Not from heat, but from the lack of pressure. Gases dissolved in his blood started forming bubbles. The pain was indescribable, like being burned from the inside out. Danny thought about his squad. 12 good people who had trusted him to keep them alive. He had failed them. He had watched them die one by one while he survived. The guilt had followed him for years, a weight that never lifted. He would not fail Seraphine. For minutes, his vision began to darken. Capillaries in his eyes burst, flooding his sight with red. He could no longer see the watching crowds, could no longer see anything except the memories playing through his oxygen-starved brain. Colony 7 burning. His friends calling for help. The smell of fire and blood and death. Danny held on. 6 minutes. His heart stuttered. The rhythm became irregular, struggling to pump blood that was turning thick and sluggish. Human bodies were not designed for this. Nothing was designed for this except the Noctari themselves. But humans were designed to suffer and survive. Centuries of evolution had built a species that could endure pain beyond reason, could push through damage that would kill any sensible creature. Humans did not know when to quit. 8 minutes. Danny went still. The arena erupted in cheers. Crescent stood, arms raised in victory. The human is dead. The trial has failed. Seraphine said nothing. Her eyes never left Danny's floating body. 9 minutes. The medical team prepared to retrieve the corpse. They moved slowly, enjoying the princess's defeat. 9 minutes and 40 seconds. Danny's body was pulled back into the crystal sphere. The medics approached. One of them checked for vital signs and stepped back in shock. "He is alive," the medic whispered. "Barely, but alive." The arena went silent. Seraphine was already moving. She pushed past the medics and placed her hands on Danny's chest. Blue light flowed from her fingers, bioelectric energy pouring into his dying body. She was giving him her own life force, something no Noctari had ever done for a human. Danny's eyes opened. They were completely red with burst blood vessels, but they were open. "Did I make it?" he croaked. "You made it," Seraphine said softly. "You impossible, stubborn human. You made it." Crescent was screaming something about unfairness, about rules, about humans being vermin who should not be allowed to compete. Emperor Valdris silenced him with a look. "The trial is past," the Emperor declared. "The human champion survived. Prepare for the second trial." Danny tried to smile. "It probably looked terrible. What is the second trial?" Seraphine helped him stand. "They will test your mind. The telepods will try to break you from the inside." "Good," Danny said. "I was worried it would be something difficult." He collapsed immediately after, but he was still laughing when unconsciousness took him. Danny woke in a maze made of darkness. The walls shifted constantly, breathing like living things. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear whispers that sounded like his own voice. The second trial had begun. "Welcome, human." The voice came from everywhere at once. "You will walk through your own mind. We will show you every failure, every fear, every shame you have buried. No one emerges from this trial whole." Danny started walking. The first vision hit him like a physical blow. He was back on Colony 7, watching his squad die. Private Hendricks was screaming as flames consumed her. Sergeant Wallace was trying to hold his guts inside his body. Lieutenant Park was calling for backup that would never come. Danny watched himself in the memory, frozen with fear, unable to move while his friends died around him. "You failed them," the whispers said. "You let them die. You were supposed to save them, and you did nothing." "I know," Danny said quietly. He did not stop walking. The maze twisted. New visions appeared. His father leaving when Danny was 7, walking out the door without looking back. His mother coughing blood in a hospital bed, asking why her son was never there. Every broken promise. Every relationship he had ruined. Every time he had chosen the easy path instead of the right one. The telepaths pushed deeper. They found memories Danny had buried so deep he had forgotten they existed. The first patient he had lost as a young medic. The soldier he could not save because his hand was shaking too badly. The moment he had considered eating his own weapon after Colony 7. "You are nothing," the voices said. "You are a broken man pretending to be whole. Everything you touch dies. Everyone who trusts you regrets it." Danny stopped walking. The maze walls closed in around him, pressing against his thoughts like hand around his throat. He remembered his training. Combat medics were taught to process trauma, not bury it. You could not save everyone. You could only do your best and carry the ones you lost with you. Not as a burden, but as a reminder of why you kept trying. Danny had ignored that training for years. He had buried everything and run away, becoming a delivery driver because pizzas did not die when you made mistakes. But the memories were still there. The telepaths had found them and brought them into the light. Danny started walking again. "What are you doing?" the voices demanded. "You cannot simply walk through this. You must break. Everyone breaks." "I'm looking," Danny said, "at all of it. Every mistake, every failure, every person I let down." He moved through the maze, letting the visions come. Each one hurt. Each one showed him something ugly about himself. But Danny did not look away. He watched his worst moments and accepted them. "You do not understand," he said to the darkness. "I've been carrying this my whole life. I just never looked at it properly. You're not showing me anything new. You're just making me face what I already knew was there." The maze began to shake. The telepaths were pushing harder, trying to find something that would shatter him. They found the moment after Colony 7, when Danny had sat alone in a hospital room and planned exactly how he would end his life. They showed him that memory in perfect detail. Danny watched it. He remembered the pain, the hopelessness, the absolute certainty that he was broken beyond repair. He also remembered what had stopped him. A nurse had walked in with bad coffee and terrible jokes. She had sat with him for 3 hours, talking about nothing, just being present. Danny had survived that night because a stranger had bothered to notice he was hurting. I almost gave up, Danny told the darkness. But I did not, and I will not give up now. The center of the maze appeared before him. Crescent stood there, or was something wearing his face. It smiled with too many teeth. Surrender, the false Crescent said. Accept defeat. The pain will stop. Danny laughed. The sound echoed through the maze, surprising even himself. The pain never stops. That is what you do not understand about humans. We live with pain every day. We carry our losses like armor. We do not break because we are already broken and we keep moving anyway. He walked past the false Crescent and out of the maze. The telepods were unconscious when Danny emerged. 3 ancient Noctari who had broken thousands of minds over the centuries collapsed on the floor because they had encountered something they could not defeat. Seraphine was waiting for him. Her eyes were wet. You were crying in there, she said. We could see it on the monitors. But you never stopped walking. Danny wiped his face. His cheeks were still damp. Tears do not mean you have given up. Sometimes they mean you are finally letting yourself feel. Crescent was already demanding the final trial. His voice echoed through the palace, promising to tear Danny apart with his own hands. Trial of blood, Seraphine said. Combat to the death. You against him. Danny looked at his hands. They were shaking slightly. The trials had taken more from him than he wanted to admit. But he was still standing. Then let us finish this. The combat arena was older than human civilization. Bones decorated the walls, hundreds of skulls from dozens of species, all belonging to those who had fought here and lost. Danny stood on one side of the ring, holding a simple combat knife. The blade was 4 inches long, made of good steel, the same type he had carried as a medic. It felt comfortable in his hand, familiar. Crescent stood on the opposite side, holding a plasma blade that glowed bright red. The weapon could cut through starship armor. It had killed thousands. You chose a knife against my blade? Crescent laughed. Humans truly are stupid creatures. The weapon does not matter, Danny said. Only the hand that holds it. The gong sounded. Crescent attacked. Danny had fought before. He had trained with soldiers, survived real combat, learned to kill when necessary. But Crescent was something else entirely. 800 years of experience. Strength that could crush stone. Speed that made him blur. The first strike nearly took Danny's head off. He ducked under the plasma blade and felt the heat singe his hair. The second strike opened a wound across his ribs, cutting through muscle to scrape bone. Danny rolled away, bleeding heavily. You cannot win, Crescent said, advancing slowly. Your species is weak. Soft. You die so easily. He was right. Danny knew it. There was no realistic path to victory here. Crescent was faster, stronger, more experienced. Every exchange would leave Danny more damaged, while the Noctari Lord barely worked up sweat. So Danny stopped trying to win the normal way. Crescent lunged forward, plasma blade aimed at Danny's heart. Danny did not dodge. He stepped into the attack, letting the blade pierce his shoulder completely. The weapon passed through flesh and bone, pinning Crescent's arm in place. The warlord's eyes widened. What are you doing? Winning, Danny said. He drove his knife into Crescent's throat. The blade was not long enough to kill instantly. Crescent staggered backward, yanking his weapon free from Danny's shoulder in the process. Blood poured from the wound, but Danny was already moving. He had studied Noctari biology during the hours before the trial. They could regenerate most wounds. They could survive damage that would kill anything else. But there was one spot that could not be healed, one weakness that even 8 centuries of life could not protect. Danny threw himself at Crescent, ignoring the claws that raked across his chest. He grabbed the handle of his knife, still buried in the warlord's throat, and used it as leverage to climb higher. Crescent threw him off. Danny flew across the arena and hit the wall hard enough to crack bones. He forced himself to stand anyway. You cannot hurt me, Crescent said, pulling the knife from his throat. The wound was already closing. Nothing you do will matter. You are probably right, Danny admitted. Blood was dripping from everywhere now. His vision was going dark around the edges. He had minutes left, maybe less. But I only need to hurt you once. He charged again. Crescent caught him easily, one massive hand closing around Danny's throat. Foolish creature. I will drain you dry and throw your corpse at the princess's feet. Good luck with that, Danny wheezed. His hand moved. Crescent did not see the second knife, the small blade Danny had hidden in his sleeve, the weapon that had been pressing against his wrist throughout the entire fight, waiting for this moment. The blade entered Crescent's eye socket and kept going. Noctari could survive almost anything, but direct brain destruction was beyond even their ability to heal. The knife severed connections that could not be repaired, damaged structures that had taken centuries to develop. Crescent dropped Danny. The warlord stood for a moment, mouth open, trying to understand what had happened. Then he fell, and he did not get up. Danny collapsed beside his enemy. He could hear screaming from the crowd, shouting from the royal box, footsteps running toward him. None of it mattered. Danny, Seraphine's voice. She was kneeling beside him, her hands glowing with blue light. Stay with me. You're not allowed to die. Did I win? Danny's voice sounded far away, even to himself. You won. Seraphine was crying now, tears running down her pale cheeks as she poured her life force into his broken body. You impossible, beautiful, insane human. You won. Danny tried to smile. Good. The customer is always right. He passed out to the sound of an entire civilization realizing that everything they believed about humans was wrong. Danny woke slowly, swimming up through layers of darkness toward light. His body felt strange, rebuilt somehow, pieced together from fragments that should not have fit. Seraphine sat beside his bed, looking exhausted. Her skin was paler than before, her eyes dimmer. She had given him so much of her own life force that she was barely holding herself together. How long? Danny asked. His voice sounded rough. 3 days. She smiled weakly. You almost died 17 times. I stopped counting after that. Danny looked around the room. It was different from his previous quarters. Larger, grander, with windows that overlooked the entire palace. Where am I? The ambassador's suite. Seraphine stood slowly. My father wishes to speak with you. He has been waiting since you woke up the first time. I woke up before. Several times. You kept asking for pizza. The kitchen staff was very confused. Danny laughed, then winced as his rebuilt ribs protested. Lead the way. Emperor Valdris was ancient in a way that went beyond years. He sat on his throne like a statue come to life, watching Danny approach with eyes that held thousands of years of memory. The court was empty except for Seraphine and a few guards. This was a private audience. You killed Lord Crescent, the emperor said. His voice was flat, giving nothing away. He was trying to kill me first. Valdris nodded slowly. He was also my cousin's son, a powerful warlord with many allies. His death has caused complications. Danny felt his stomach tighten. After everything he had survived, was the emperor going to execute him anyway? However, Valdris continued. His death has also solved problems I have been unable to address for centuries. Crescent's faction wanted war with humanity. I did not. Now that faction has no leader and no direction. The emperor stood. He was tall, even taller than Crescent had been, and he moved with a grace that made Danny feel clumsy in comparison. You humans confuse us, Valdris said. You are weak individually, yet you conquer everything you touch. You live brief lives, yet you accomplish more in decades than most species achieve in millennia. You should have died in every trial, but you refused. Humans are stubborn, Danny said. It is one of our better qualities. Indeed, Valdris stopped in front of him. I'm offering you a position. Ambassador to humanity. You would represent your species to our empire, negotiating treaties and preventing conflicts before they begin. Danny looked at Seraphine. She gave him a slight nod, but her expression was unreadable. I have conditions, Danny said. I assumed you would. All human prisoners in Noctari space are released immediately. All captured human ships are returned. Safe passage for human vessels through your territory, guaranteed by imperial law. and regular trade routes established between our peoples. Valdris was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, showing fangs that were somehow less frightening than his grandson's had been. You negotiate like a human, he said, demanding more than you expect to receive. I expect to receive everything, Danny replied, because I know what I represent. A human who defeated your greatest warrior. A human who survived trials designed to be unsurvivable. Every species in the galaxy will hear about this. They will wonder what else humans can do. The Emperor laughed. It was a dry sound and used for centuries. You are correct. My spies report that 17 other species have requested human champions since your victory. Your value has increased dramatically. Then my terms are reasonable. They are. Valdris extended his hand. We have an agreement, Ambassador Reeves. Danny shook it. The Emperor's grip was cold, but surprisingly gentle. Later, Danny stood in the palace hangar, looking at his little delivery pod. It seemed ridiculous now, a tiny vessel that had carried him into an empire and out again. Seraphine appeared beside him. She was wearing her royal clothes again, looking every inch the princess. But her eyes were the same ones that had watched over him while he healed. You are leaving, she said. I have to report back. Let people know what happened. There are treaties to finalize, prisoners to pick up, a whole lot of paperwork to file. Danny paused. And pizza deliveries to make. My ratings have probably dropped while I was gone. Seraphine smiled. I placed a standing order. Weekly delivery, every Thursday. Someone has to bring them. Someone does. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a pendant on a silver chain. The symbol of a Noctari royal house gleamed in the light. This marks you as a friend of the court. You have safe passage anywhere in our space, and permission to visit whenever you wish. Danny took the pendant and put it around his neck. It felt warm against his chest. I will come back, he said. There's a lot more work to do. I know. Seraphine stepped closer. Thank you, Danny, for everything. She kissed him on the cheek. Her lips were cold, but the gesture was warm. Danny climbed into his pod and started the engines. As he lifted off, he received a message on his communication system. New delivery order. Coordinates in unexplored space. Payment already cleared. Attached note. We heard about the human who conquered the vampires. We have a proposition. Danny sighed, adjusted course, and muttered to himself. The things I do for tips. His pod disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying a pizza delivery driver who had somehow become humanity's greatest ambassador. Somewhere behind him, a vampire princess watched him go and smiled.